Did China just take the lead in the AI arms race? It seems that Chinese company Ant Group, which is backed by Alibaba and Jack Ma, has developed a way to cut down AI training costs by 20% using made in China chips, which is a huge deal. For a lot of big tech companies, they've been using these NVIDIA chips, graphics cards, Intel, the whole stack. People have been using these chips to try to make their own AIs, and it's been costing companies millions of dollars to train AI models to get it up and running. But I think this may have changed the game, because now they're saying that a Chinese company, Ant Group, which is backed by Alibaba, has created chips in China that they're using instead of these huge expensive consumer grade chips and graphics cards that we have here in America. They're using their own, as well as they're having ways to cut down on costs when it comes to training the models. This is a huge game changer because AI as of now has been really kickstarted in America, especially with OpenAI with their first ChatGPT that really launched the whole AI race. That really propelled everything forward, but it doesn't seem like they're keeping the lead, or at least not by much. It seems like a lot of other American companies like Gemini, Claude, Perplexity aren't too far behind them. If they come out with something that's groundbreaking, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini is right on their heels. But in the foreign markets, especially like in China, where they have different tariffs, embargoes, or just blockades that are not allowing them to get the latest and greatest technology, the graphics cards, processors, or whatever, any type of chips, these are preventing them from catching up because they don't have the hardware to train the data, train the AI in order to be as good as some of these other products here in America. But them creating their own AI chips definitely helps them out a lot more, and especially can help out other companies around the world, because now they don't have to rely on America. There's another player in town, and that player is China. But that's not where it just ends. And I think this is something that is noted in a lot of these articles, but I don't think they're really explaining to you the importance of this and the kind of potential drawback that say that the Ant Group's latest approach leveraged domestic semiconductors and machine learning techniques known as mixture of experts, MOE for short, which is one of the ways that's helping them cut down on the 20% cost. So they were saying that normally it'll cost $1 million to train some AI models. That's not the most advanced ones, but just a normal AI model to train it on the data, it would take like cutting that down 20% is really a big news. It's really good to cut that down to such a reduction in price. That really saves a lot of money. That can even have small businesses become bigger players in the market. But what's been happening, I think what we've seen with DeepSeek, now we're seeing the same thing with Ant Group. Some things that's changing isn't necessarily the hardware requirements, it's their approach to how they're going about training this data, how they're going about with the AIs. What's happening, what we're seeing is that they have these different approaches, these different architectures, there's different approaches on training, which significantly brings down the cost versus maybe how OpenAI is doing it in maybe some of the other American-based companies. These new approaches are more efficient, which makes it less expensive to train these AI models. And that's important. I say that because America may still have the best chips, the best graphics cards, but with them using their mixture of experts architecture, it cuts down on costs. But is that something that can't be replicated? Can that architecture not be replicated here in America? Because if it can be created here in America using that same type of architecture, a lot of that cost savings, or at least a portion of that, can be here in America to cut down on costs, and we could have stronger graphics cards. So if we have stronger graphics cards using a approach that is less costly, we're going to have better gains when it comes to these data, this research, this type of power that's, on the tip of our fingers. And so I think that's a good thing to note, especially since a lot of these AI companies are open sourcing some of their data, some of their AI models, like how we've seen with DeepSeek. That's really going to change a lot of how AIs train data going forward, and it may lessen the moat that they may have around them to something that's more easily trainable, available. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think China is necessarily trying to beat out a lot of the companies here in America. I think they're just trying to slow them down and also lower the barrier of entry. So instead of OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity being the big players in town and that nobody else can compete, I don't think China's trying to be the bigger player and beat them in their own game. I think they're trying to more so have the AI and in the training and the data be used against them by having a lot of people being able to enter the market, having it easier for other people to do it. If you see even like Manus, an AI company that uses Claude in the back end, and it kind of connects a lot of different AI products together to make their own new product. That in itself is pretty good, but it also shows that you may not need to make your own ChatGPT. You may not need to make your own Claude or your own Gemini. You may just need to have the barrier to entry lowered so you can then come in and compete even against them to a certain extent. I think this is a game changer, but this may be a better game changer for small businesses and companies as a whole versus it being a detriment to just America. But with the investments that's going into a lot of these AI companies and cost savings that's changing, I wonder how investors are going to feel about how much they invest into a company and how much they, put these new businesses when they may not need that much money, the billions or trillions of investor funds to really make a good product. Maybe investors may really start paring back and seeing that, hey, I don't need to put all this money into it because y'all don't need all that money to make a good product, because we're seeing China and maybe soon we may be seeing just smaller businesses in general compete on the same scale with maybe less money, less funding, just like we've seen with DeepSeek, Manus, and other AIs. But tell me down in the comment down below, do you think this is as huge as they're saying, or do you think there is some hidden advantages that are not stated explicitly? If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest AI news, tech news, robotics news, you should definitely like and subscribe. With that being said, your boy Dex9 Dexter out.